history of the Wilson Euphonium.
Oh, that'd be great.
You know, it was back in 1972. I was in Chicago at the Midwest Band Clinic, and I went around to the exhibits. And at this one exhibit, I found an unusual euphonium called the Marzan Euphonium. It was 4 valves, front action valve,
Really?
but automatic compensating. The 4th valve was a compensating valve, and I played it, and it had some nice characteristics, very similar to the old Besson, the original Besson. And so I talked with the DEG people, and they were going to send me one to try out. And they sent me one, but it didn't play the same. It was an earlier prototype. It wasn't as good, so I sent it back. And then I didn't hear anything from them for a while. And all of a sudden, they sent me a prototype of a new Wilson Euphonium. Not the Marzan brand, but it was the setup was more like the old Besson with 4 valves and 4th on the side rather than 3 in a row.
Right, right.
And I tried it out, and it had some of the same characteristics that I liked in the Marzan and the tone quality. But it had some intonation challenges, and the setup, the mount pipe was too low, and things were too low. And so I wrote out some ideas and corrections, 3 pages worth. One of the ideas I had is that the 4th valve with the suddenly larger bore was sort of like falling in a hole when you used it. The tone quality would change right away. So I thought, what would it be the possibility of tapering that 4th valve slide, like you're tapering the major part of the bell, so when you play the 4th valve, it plays sooner. So I sent it off, and I didn't know whether I'd hear anything. For Christmas, they sent me a box of fruit, you know, from the company. I thought, well, that's all I'll hear, because usually when you make corrections for a company, they don't pay much attention to it. Well, the next year I was with the Bicentennial Band, and the Navy Band was going to buy new instruments. So they were going to the Midwest to try new instruments. And I said, well, you know, they had Bessons, of course, with their one instrument. And I said, well, you might check out a couple of new instruments. The Hirschberner was just coming out there. Try out the Hirschberner and see if they've done anything with this Wilson Euphonium. So they came back in January, they went to see me and said, they sent this prototype for you. And they had made every single correction that I had suggested, which is very unusual. And it was a lacquered instrument. So I began playing it. It was the first instrument I played, and I just started with the Air Force Band. So I played it for about 4 or 5 months, the lacquered instrument, and they sent me then a silver one that I used. And it was, you know, it worked out really well. And the Navy Band was the first band to buy them. They bought 6 of them right away.
Oh, wow.
And we made a few further improvements. If the 4th valve slide was very wide, and for small hands it would have been difficult, so we just tilted a little bit so it was a smaller handle there, and worked on a couple of other refinements. And but it played beautifully, and that's how I sort of got started with the Wilson Company.
Were the valve caps shaped like Besson valve caps?
They were a little different, yes, they were a little different, and the valve stem seemed to be quite long.
Okay.
So later improvements that we made once before the Riva de Garda conference, they made a deeper valve cap, so the cap would not look like it was a shorter action. Because it looked like a shorter action, it felt like a shorter action psychologically. And so that's how they make them now. And so that was very interesting also. And they now get their valve clusters from a different company too. So the valves are a little bit better.
Have you made any other suggestions that you've seen changed over the years since that first?
Not too much, just the valve change, the valve section change, and maintaining the sound of the one-piece bell, and trying to make sure that the angle of the lead pipe was appropriate, so you didn't have to play like this, you could play like this.
And much more comfortable ergonomically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
The idea was to make it as natural as possible. But I enjoy the Wilson because when they changed the Besson Euphonium in 2000, 1972, 73, when Dennis Witt got involved with changing the design and made the sovereign instrument. I remember I bought a sovereign instrument when I was in the bicentennial band with a large bell, the larger bore. And played it for a few months, but the sound was not the same as my old Besson. And the sound of the Wilson was more similar to the euphonium sound I was used to with the old Besson. And using the euphonium shank, which is the true euphonium shank in between the tenor trombone and bass trombone, seems to give the most characteristic euphonium sound. It was very interesting when Hirschberger made their instrument. They had an interchangeable receiver. You could change the receiver to take any of the three shanks. But actually the horn played the very best with the euphonium shank. Really played much better than with the bass trombone shank or the tenor trombone shank.
So the medium shank gets the name Euro shank because it was the traditional shape for euphonium.
From the original Boozy Hawks Besson company. That shank gives sort of a mellower sound and a little more characteristic singing quality.
So we need to change the name from Euro to euphonium shank.
To true euphonium shank. That's what it should be.
True euphonium shank.
Should be the true euphonium
tenor
shank.
trombone, true euphonium, and bass trombone.
And it was interesting because I've had many students who have come with a larger shank instrument, and after a while they try the true euphonium shank and they realize it does play differently and better.
Absolutely.
It's the sound you want to get.
That's what happened to me. When I started playing, I was using a large shank, and when I switched over to a medium shank euphonium, I felt like everything kind of got narrowed in and centered and focused much more.
And it makes the sound freer.
Yep.
And it doesn't sound, the problem I had with the larger instrument was that it sounded a little bit woody. It didn't have quite the warmth of the sound. It was a big sound, but it was sort of like playing in a barrel.
Right.
And I like the idea of the sound being very personal and very warm and rich. And true euphonium sound, not sounding like a tuba playing in the upper register.
Right. And that's one of the great things I like about this. Width of the bell too, it's not too wide.
Right.
Some of these bells are getting so wide.
Yeah, they get so big, and they play immediately when they a student playing will suddenly think, oh, this is great because it's and free blowing. But sometimes the resistance helps create a better quality of sound.
Right.
If it's too free blowing, then as you blow, the sound gets more open, more blatant, more so like talking like this, too big, rather than having the enunciation and the clarity of the sound. It gives you, it's sort of like the difference between a small ball bearing and a big Concord grape. The grape you throw against the wall and goes splat. The ball bearing, boom, it makes an indentation. A much more solid sound. So that's, and I keep trying other instruments, but I still haven't found one that has quite that sound consistency throughout the register and everything else. Another characteristic of the Wilson I like is that it's very flexible as far as being able to lift up and down and to find the center of the sound in different pitches. So that although there are certain notes, of course, that have different tendencies intonation-wise, they're easy to fix. They're easy to fix. And other instruments I've found that it's much harder to lift down and maintain the tone quality.
Yeah, I agree.
So I've been playing it now for a long time.
How long?
Since 1974 or 5. 76 was really the first time. So.
Okay, so about 34 years?
Let's see, 76 days.
33 years?
About 43 years.
43. There you go. Math's a little off.
Yeah, it's all right. So it's been a long time. So it's been great.